Hi friends, today we are going to see the past year NEET questions for a new chapter called Animal Kingdom, and today in this chapter we will complete the part 1. So let's begin with the first question here. Which of the following characteristic is mainly responsible for diversification of insect on land? So we have 4 options here. So how do you differentiate or the diversification? So we are talking about that. So what is diversification? First we will understand what is diversification, and then we will discuss the first of all, what is diversity? The state of being diverse. That is, when we talk about diversity in simple words, it means of understanding that each individual is unique. We are talking about the uniqueness. Okay. And recognizing our individual differences. These can be along the dimensions of the race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, age, physical entities, chemical entities, anything. Okay, so here when we talk about diversification, we are talking about the uniqueness. So here, responsible for the diversification of insects on land. Okay, you have 4 options here. The correct answer is exoskeleton. The exoskeleton of insects consists of chitinous cuticle. It gets hardened due to the deposition of calcium. It prevents desiccation and gives protection. So we have bilateral symmetry here, eye segmentation, but the correct answer is exoskeleton. But what can you say, or how can you describe exoskeleton? Is there any other explanation that we can give? See, when we talk about exoskeleton, it is the key feature of all living organisms, right? It is not just for insects, but all living organisms. Okay, and it includes, especially it is a key feature for arthropods when they come to the category of animals that includes insects, spiders and others. Grasshoppers, cockroaches, ants, bees, etc. are examples of having exoskeleton. So main property of exoskeleton, it gives protection, and that protection comes from the cuticle, which has a deposition of calcium over it. Therefore the correct answer to this question is option B. Next question here. Metagenesis refers to dash. So how can you how can you differentiate, or how can you explain metagenesis? So in general, what is metagenesis? It is defined as the alteration of generation found in the phylum Initria, that is example they have given as Oblea. In this phenomenon, one generation of organism reproduces asexually, followed by a sexually reproducing generation. So if you clearly identify, or if you clearly have to understand metagenesis, they're talking about the generations here. Okay, they call it as alteration of generation. Why? If you see, in the first generation it is asexual means of reproduction, and in the second generation, if you see, it is a sexual means of reproduction. So they will call it as alteration of generations. Okay, alteration of generations between asexual and sexual phases of an organism. So this is the definition for metagenesis. The occurrence during the life cycle of an organism of 2 types of individual, both diploid, both which reproduce, one sexually and the other asexually. The term is sometimes used loosely as a synonym for the alteration of generations. Therefore the correct answer to this question is option A. They have given you an example here. The phylum Synetria is an example for this metagenesis. Okay, next question here. Which of the following have the highest number of species in nature? This is an easy question for you to answer, I think. So we all know microorganisms contribute to the highest level, but here we do not have bacteria or virus. Fungi, it's okay, we can consider them as highest, but out of the 4 options given here, insects contribute more than fungi. Okay, in nature, insects have highest number of species. That is, you have more than 30 million, it seems. Okay, 30 million. Fungi have about 1 lakh, and angiosperms about 2,60,000. Birds have about 10,000, but the highest is 30 million. Okay, insects have the highest range. So here you have a picture which depicts that you have different kinds of insects that you come across in your daily life. Butterflies, bees, all these come under insects. So fungi even have only 1 lakh species, it seems. So which is the highest of all? insects. Therefore, the correct answer is option B. Next question here. Radial symmetry is usually associated with dash. First of all, what is radial symmetry? How do you describe it? See, radial symmetry is a symmetry about the central axis. Always remember that when the cut is in the central axis, you call that as radial symmetry, and this is highly predominant in starfish. Mostly they will take this as an example. Radial symmetry is the arrangement of the body parts around the central axis like rays on the sun or the pieces in the pie. Radial symmetry animals have top and bottom surfaces but no have left and right sides or front or back. Radial symmetry for some organisms like Synetria phylum that we saw already in the earlier question, they can be taken as an example. Apart from that, you also have some examples, as I mentioned, starfish. Okay, what are the other examples which can come under this? Jellyfish. All these exhibit a radial symmetry. So the correct answer to this question is option B, lower grade of organization. It is not in aquatic mode alone, or it is not in creeping mode or sedentary mode. It is for the lower grade of organization. So here you can see how the radial symmetry, see, I said it is the central axis, right? Therefore you can see it is in the central axis. Can you see this? So always remember, when we talk about radial symmetry, it is the central axis. In this type of cavity, mesoderm is lined up along, only on one side, that is towards the body wall. Okay, therefore the correct answer to this question is option B. Next question here. True coelom is the space lying between the alimentary canal and the body wall enclosed by the layers of dash. So again, you're given 4 options here. I will show you a diagram so that it will be easy for you to understand. Okay. Coelom is a fluid-filled space between body wall and alimentary canal, which is lined by a parietal peritoneum. Okay, it's called as mesoderm on the outer side of the vesical peritoneum. It's a mesoderm on the inner side. So here you can see the picture here. See, you have ectoderm, mesoderm, endoderm. We always have all these 3. Okay, so the true coelom is a space lying between the alimentary canal and the body wall enclosed by option D, mesoderm on both sides. So that is what they have given here. It is a mesoderm on both the sides. You have on the outer side as well as on the inner side. Okay, inner and the outer side. So we don't have any ecto or endoderm. The mesoderm is only present on the both sides when it comes to the true coelom space. Therefore, the correct answer to this question is option D. Okay. Next question here. The organisms attached to the substratum generally possesses dash. So this question was asked in the year 1995. I think this should be easy for you to understand and answer because we've already discussed about it. When an organism is attached to the substratum, it usually undergoes radial symmetry because we talk about the vertical planes here. Okay, so the organisms which are attached to the substratum generally possess radial symmetry in their vertical planes. Okay, therefore the correct answer is option A. Apart from that, radial symmetry is a type of formal balance in which objects radiate around a central point and has more than one line of symmetry. So this is an extra information that you need to know about radial symmetry. It is a type of, see, it gives balance for the for the organism as well. Okay, so as I already said, the central axis plays an important role when it comes to radial symmetry. So here the symmetry, see, it can have more than one line of symmetry, but all are focused on the central axis. Okay, therefore the correct answer to this question is option A, radial symmetry. Okay, next question here. Radial symmetry is often exhibited by animals having dash. So this is also a very easy question for you to answer. We already saw radial symmetry is seen in lower grade organization, but you do not have any answer like this, but you have to analyze the options that are given here. Now here, the first option is one opening of alimentary canal, aquatic mode of living. What do you mean by alimentary canal? How can you describe alimentary canal? See, alimentary canal can be described as or it can be defined as the whole passage along which the food passes through the body from the mouth to the anus during digestion. So one opening of alimentary canal, no. Aquatic mode of living? No. See, when we constrain it to only to aquatic animals, there are much more terrestrial organisms which are they are much lower in the grade of organization. So the ciliary mode, you're confining. Here it is vast. Okay, when we say lower grade of organization, the population is quite vast. So here the correct answer is benthos and sedentary living. What do you mean by benthos? How can you describe them? Benthos. Okay. See, benthos is the community of organisms that live in, they live in or on or near the seabed, river, lake or stream or bottom of the benthic zone. They actually call them as benthic zone. What do they call them as? The benthic zone. Okay. Sedentary, they come to the terrestrial part also. So when we talk about the lower grade organization, the population is vast, as I said. So it will have everything which can come into it. Therefore, the correct answer to this question is option C. In radial symmetry, body is cut longitudinally through the axis, through any radius of the two equal halves. So therefore, the correct answer to this question is option C, where central axis plays an important role when it comes to radial symmetry. Okay, next question here. Coelom derived from blastocele is known as dash. Coelom or the body cavity. So when we talk about coelom, it also refers to the body cavity. When derived from the blastocele is it is a pseudocoelom, as in found in nematodes or rotifers. In this type of cavity, mesoderm is lined by only one side, that is towards the body wall, and coelom derived from blastocele is known as pseudocoelom. Pseudo means false. So you can consider it as to be a temporary one. Coelom that is derived from the blastocele is called as pseudocoelom. Therefore, the correct answer to this question is option C. They have given you examples also. Nematodes and rotifers are examples for this. Then you have something called schico, the last one, which is a true coelom derived from mesodermal segments. So coelom which is derived from the blastocele is known as pseudocoelom. The correct answer is option C. Next question here. Metamorphosis of insects are regulated through a hormone. So what do you call metamorphosis? There is a clear-cut explanation for that. Metamorphosis. We can talk about the whole, the whole generation process, right? It is a biological process. You can also term it as biological process by which an animal physically develops after birth. So it can be giving birth to young ones, or it is from hatchling from the egg also, involving a conspicuous and relatively abrupt changes in the animal body structure. So what happens here? You're talking about the cell growth and differentiation, right? You're talking about cell growth and differentiation. So metamorphosis of insects is regulated by which hormone that we are talking about? The hormone that is responsible for that is called as ecdysone. It is called as ecdysone. What do you mean by ecdysone? I have given you a molecular structure for that. You can also go through that. See, it is an hormone. Okay, it is also called as a steroid hormone, okay, which will control the molting in insects and other arthropods. So what is this ecdysone? It is a steroid hormone. Okay, it is a steroid hormone. Kindly remember this, don't forget it, which controls the molting in insects. Therefore, the correct answer to this question is option C, and you also have a molecular structure of ecdysone. Okay, next question here. Ecdysis is shedding of dash. This is an easy question for you to answer, right? Of course, ecdysis is shedding of the skin. And when it comes to the skin part, you always have to remember we are talking in terms of stratum corneum. It is the outermost partially confined or conified layer of the scale, like cells. So mostly we will take snakes as an example, right? They shed their skin often in the seasonal periods. And when you observe that skin, it is in the form of scales, right? Even fishes you must have seen very often the scales that are present on their skin. So that is called as stratum corneum. It is the outermost partially conified layer of scale-like appearance. Small fragments of this layer are periodically shed off from the body, known as ecdysis. So this process of shedding, you call it as ecdysis, and that is the which part is shed is called as stratum corneum. The new layer is regularly formed by underlying stratum germinativum. Okay, germinativum. Therefore, the correct answer to this question is option A. Next question here. In case of poriferans, the spongocoel is lined with flagellated cells called as dash. So here you're given 4 options. So first, what do you mean by porifera or poriferans? What can you talk about this? When we talk about poriferas, they are nothing but the sponges. Sponges are the members of the phylum belonging to porifera or poriferans. They have a basal metazoa. What do they have? A basal metazoa, and they are multicellular organisms that have bodies full of pores. They'll have pores on them, right? And channels allowing water to circulate through them, consisting of jelly-like mesophiles sandwiched between 2 thin layers of cell. So you must have seen a sponge. How do they look? They have their full body covered with pores so that they can absorb water, and the water is continuously circulated around them. Now, in case of poriferans, the spongocoel is lined with a flagellated cell called as conocytes. Option B is the right answer. So that forms the lining for the spongocoel, and the flagella which is present in the collar cells will provide the circulation to water in the water canal system. See, the whole body of the sponges will be covered with pores, and all that pores will be they'll all be having absorbed water in it. You must have seen the normal sponge which you use, a duster that you use to wipe a board, even that has full pores. When you dump into water, what happens? It becomes very heavy because the water is absorbed by the pores that are present in it. Likewise, here the flagellated cells which we are talking about is called as conocytes, which is option B is the right answer. Next question here. Body having meshwork of cell. Internal cavities lined within food filtering flagellated cells and indirect development are characteristic of the phylum dash. So once again, when we talk about meshwork, what is meshwork? It's a continuous work that is found around the body. It's tightly packed, in fact, you can call it like that. So this kind of meshwork, if you see, it is not in protozoa, mollusca or coelenterata. It is actually found in sponges. The given characteristic feature resemble poriferans. Just now I said, see, the sponge gives you an appearance of meshwork. So the keyword that you need to identify here is meshwork, so which will give you a hint to easily to identify the answer. The correct answer is porifera. Apart from that, if you want to know anything about porifera, you can go surfing. Other than that, there are certain characteristics of porifera. They are commonly called as sponges. They are multicellular organisms which are sedentary in nature. Most of them are marine, while few are freshwater forms also. And their body is cylindrical. Okay, cylindrical, or it can be asymmetrical. Okay, they are the different forms that they exist, and sometimes they also exhibit radial symmetry. Therefore, the correct answer to this question is option A. Okay, next question here. Select the taxon mentioned that represents both marine and freshwater species. So they are comprising both here. So here you have 4 options: ectoderms, ctenophora, synedria. So what do you think will be the right answer? The correct, see, this is a standard question where you need to know it by heart. The correct answer is synedria. Members of the ctenophora and the rest ectoderms are all exclusively marine. Okay, here they are asking us a question where it comprises both marine and fresh. When we talk about both, only this comes under it, while the rest of all this contribute only for marine. Therefore, the correct answer to this question is option D, synedria. Okay, next question here. Which one of the following living organisms completely lacks a cell wall? Okay, this is very easy for you to identify, I think. We all know eukaryotic organisms, especially Animals, we do not possess a cell wall because during unfavorable conditions we are able to sustain and survive. But the same thing is opposite when it comes to a plant. They all possess a cell wall because the unfavorable conditions for a plant is more, and when they face such conditions they cannot move away, they cannot move right away from that situation. So for further protection, God has given them a beautiful cell wall which helps in the survival of the plant. Now the one which lacks in cell wall, cyanobacteria, Saccharomyces, blue-green algae, all these are prokaryotes. I mean, Saccharomyces is a yeast, we all know that, right? All these have a cell wall. Okay, the correct answer is cornea, which is also called as a sea fan. It's actually an animal here. Okay, animal, as I said, they do not have cell wall. So out of the 4 options, rest of all this are microorganisms. Yeast is not microorganism, but once again, you cannot view it in the naked eyes. See, when you term an organism to be micro, something that cannot be physically seen through your naked eyes, when you have to use a microscope to view the internal structure and all that. While a sea fan, if you see, it's actually an animal. Animals lack cell wall, we all know that. Therefore the correct answer to this question is option B. Okay, next question here. Planaria possesses high capacity of dash. Okay, this is a very easy question for you to answer, I think. By now you'd have guessed the answer. Yes, the right answer is regeneration. What do you mean by regeneration? Imagine a part is cut. A part is cut during unfavorable condition, when the person is hurt. I mean, not the person, when the animal is hurt, or it can be anything. The part will get regenerated again. A very good example is the lizard tail. When you cut the tail, when you're trying to hit it and when you're trying to hurt it and you push it out of the house, somehow, when by mistaken, if the tail is cut, the lizard can still survive. The tail will also get regenerated here. So planaria possesses high capacity of regeneration, and here you can see the example here. When the body is cut also, the whole part is regenerated here. Other examples include hydra, starfish. All these are examples of regeneration. Apart from that, I've given you a day-to-day example. The lizard is a very good example where the tail gets fully regenerated. But the same scenario cannot be seen in human, except hair. The rest of the parts, once is cut, cannot be regenerated, right? So regeneration is the formation of something new again. Therefore, the correct answer to this question is option B. So with this, we complete the part 1 of Animal Kingdom. Hope to meet you in the next part of the same chapter. Thank you.